Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are on Lamed Vav Amud Aleph on the bottom of the page, 36a3. It's not Hassam. We quote a Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Lagin Tevul Yom, a wooden pitcher that has the status of a Tevul Yom. Tevul Yom means that the individual went to the mikveh that day. It's the final day of whatever impurity they're dealing with, and this is going to be true whether it's an individual or it's an item. So sometimes a person or sometimes an item is going to be tummy for, let's say, 7 days, and they will go to the mikveh during the day, and the period that they're going to become tahar, the period that they're going to become pure, is that evening. So they go to the mikveh during the day, and in the evening, they are going to be pure. Okay, so that's called a tevul yom. So a pitcher, a wooden pitcher has the status of a tevul yom, shemilu min hachavish al meiser tevel, and the person fills it with wine from barrel of meiser, which is tevel. What does that mean? What that means is as follows, as we've discussed a couple of times now in the Masechta, you have the very first thing that you do with your produce is you give a portion to the Kohen. Good. Then you give a portion to meiser rishon to the Levi. The Levi then goes and gives a portion of his. So now the Levi has that, and he has to go ahead and give some truma to the Kohen from his portion. Before he gives the truma to the Kohen, that food, that meiser, is going to be considered tevel. Tevel is something which is untithed. So even though it is food which has been tithed, it comes from, right? So Mida Yisrael gives it to the Levi, and now the Levi, that meiser, but before the Levi goes ahead and does what he needs to do, you give the truma from that, then it's called tevel, and so he fills it up with wine that is tevel. It's the Levi fills it up with wine that's tevel, and he says that after dark, this is going to be trumas meiser. Whatever the food that's in here is going to be trumas meiser and dvarim koyamin. Okay, that designation takes effect when that time begins. And okay, so meaning I say so today's Friday. Okay, and we'll see why that's significant in the next line. So today's Friday, and I fill it up with this wine, and I say tonight, meaning tomorrow, this wine that's in here is going to be trumas meiser. It is effective. Great. Ve'im amar ervuli bazev. The person says, let the eruv be made for me from this wine. I want this to be my eruv. Lo amar klum. It is not an effective eruv. Now keep in mind, for an eruv to be effective, it has to be something which is edible by at least someone, by at least a Kohen. This food is not edible by anyone. Even a Kohen can't have it until the Levi designates it for a Kohen. And therefore, this food is totally tevel. And we've seen earlier, something which is tevel is not, cannot be used for an eruv. And therefore, when he says that this wine, which is right now tevel, okay, tonight when Shabbos begins, it is going to become, it's going to be my eruv. Lo mar klum, it is not a good eruv. Amar Rava. Rava says, Zosameres, this you see from here, that sof hayom kona eruv, that the end of the day, okay, that the end of the day is when an eruv kicks in, when the eruv really starts, meaning the end of the day, meaning the end of Friday is really when the eruv takes place. And the understanding is that since the wine at that point is still tevel, because the person said that tonight, meaning after Shabbos begins, that's when, meaning when Shabbos begins, that's when it's going to change to trumas meiser. So we see from here that the moment that the eruv begins is clearly earlier than that, or because if it was not earlier than that, if it was at the same time, actually, the Gemara is going to spell it out. Let's just do that inside. The Gemara says in 36b1, Lamed Vav Beis Disol Gadai Tchilas Yom Kona Erev, because if you think that the beginning of the day is when the Erev takes effect, Amar Ever Libazeh, Amai Lamar Klum, when the person says, let me Erev be made with this produce, which is Meiser Tevel, okay, and the Trumas Meiser is going to be separated by nightfall. Why is it not effective? Okay, so let me explain what this means again. There are two possible, so we have this period of time called Bein Hashmashos, right, which is that between sunset and nightfall, there's this bit of an ambiguous period. And the question, one of the things that Rava is focusing on over here is, when does the eruv actually start? When is it effective? When does it kick in? So Rava says we could infer from this Mishnah that the eruv only kicks in at the end. The eruv kicks in at the beginning of Shabbos, meaning at the beginning, right at sunset, right away at sunset. How do I know that? Because in this case, when the Mishnah told us that when the person said that the tevel is going to be trumas meiser, meaning it's going to be food which is edible, and he says it's going to take place tonight, meaning when Shabbos begins, meaning when Shabbos fully begins, meaning at nightfall, right? We said when the person says that this should be my eruv, it's not a good eruv. But why not? If the eruv is going to be only effective at nightfall, then it should be a good eruv. It must be that the eruv is actually effective only was supposed to take effect at sunset, right? At sunset, and therefore at sunset, this food is still tevel. It only becomes non-tevel, it only becomes accessible food at nightfall, and that's Rava's inference. Rav Papa rejects this, and he says, even if you want to say that really the eruv takes effect in the beginning of Shabbos, meaning at nightfall, Okay, these terms are a little bit funny because it's tchila, you would normally think it's earlier. But even if you want to say the Erev takes place at nightfall, which you were trying to reject, and then you asked, hey, but if the Erev takes place at nightfall and the tevel is no longer tevel at that point at nightfall, based on the person's phraseology, this tevel is now going to become accessible food. So still, it's not going to be good. Why? Because it's not, because the issue over here is not just when it becomes effective. He says there's another factor over here, and that is that he says that there's requirements that the food of the Erev has to be suitable while it is still day. And therefore, it's not just a reflection. You're trying to infer over here when the starting point of when the Erev kicks in. Maybe it doesn't kick in the beginning of twilight. Maybe it doesn't begin at sunset. Rather, it does begin at nightfall. But the reason it's not a good Erev is because the fact that we have an additional requirement that the Erev should be accessible, i.e. edible, at while it's still day, meaning at the time of sunset. And over here it's not. And therefore, you can't make that inference. Okay. So again, we leave it unresolved as to when does the Erev kick in, right? Which is an important question. Does the Erev start at sunset? Does the Erev begin at nightfall? And we leave that unresolved. Okay. Now, we are going to talk about cases where a person is going to set up Eruvin in different directions, and also making stipulations, and also using a concept called brera, which means a retroactive designation. Okay, we'll see what all this means as we see the Mishnah. A person's allowed to attach a condition to their Eruv and place two Eruvin. Okay, now let's keep in mind, you cannot place two Eruvin. I cannot start Shabbos. So here's my city, and I say, okay, this is where I live over here, and I can't set up an Eruv over here, and an Eruv over here, and say, well, Eruv Tchum is going to go in both directions. No, the whole concept of an Eruv is that you have a specific residence, right? And the question is, where is your residence? Is your residence here? Okay, if this is my residence, then I get 2,000 amos around everywhere else. If this is my residence, then I'm able to go from where I started Shabbos, which is the city, and go here, and then I have my 2,000 amos further from that place if I put it over here. I can't say my residence is in two places. That just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so you can't ever, so we're going to accept you can't have two Eruvin. However, but a person could make a stipulation, and they have their city. I live over here, and I put an Eruv over here, and I put an Eruv over here. And what do I say? I say, if Gentiles come from the east, then my Eruv is going to be to the west, right? Gentiles in this context, we're talking about people like enemies, people are trying to attack. So, if they come from the west, then my Eruv is to the east. I want to go in the other direction. I want to run for my life, right? If they come from both directions, then I will go to the place I choose. Okay, but if they don't come, let's say they stay put. There's rumors they're coming, but they don't come. Right? This is ma'asim shebechol yom. These are things which were probably happening all the time in the ancient world or not so ancient world. Then, a person says, I've set up Eruvin here, and I say, and I stipulate, if they don't come, then harini k'vnei iri, then I should be like my townspeople. Right now, what's the significance of that? Because if I have this, if this is my Erev Tchumen, then all I'm allowed to do is go from here to here, and then 2,000 amos from this place. But if I have no Erev Tchumen, then I go 2,000 amos in all these directions, right? So the person wants to say like this: if they come from this direction, then the Erev that I set up over here is going to be effective, so I can run this way. If they come from this direction, the Erev that I set up over here is going to be effective, so I can run this way. If they don't come from either direction, then I just want to be regular, and so that could allow me to have the 2,000 amos around my own city. Okay, then another case: if a scholar comes to the east, then my Erev is to the east, implying that I want to go greet the scholar. Marav Eruvi le Marav. If he comes from the west, my Erev is the west. If he comes here and there, then I will go to the place I choose. If he doesn't come to either place, or any iri, then I'm going to be like the townspeople, meaning who place no Erev. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He said, if one of them was his teacher, then, meaning in the situation where he said, if scholars come from each side, I'll go to whichever one I want. He says, no, there's limitation to that. If one of them is his own teacher, then holech etzel rabbi. We assume that what he wanted was actually to go to his teacher and not to the other one. And therefore, his Erev Tchumen, let's say you have not my teacher and my teacher coming from this side, then the Erev on this side is going to be the one that's effective. Holech etzel rabbi. If only in a situation both were his teachers, then lamakam shir tziyelech, then you go to the place he chooses. Okay. When Rav Yitzchak came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he taught a brisa which had the cases in reverse. That's meaning where whichever direction the non-Jews were coming, okay, that's the direction that the person wants the Erev to be, right? As opposed to before, we were saying that I set up to Eruvin. If the non-Jews come from this side, then I want my Erev to be on this side so I can run. Now we're saying no. If the non-Jews come from this side, then I want my Erev to be on that side. Okay, I'll have to understand why. And the reverse, when it comes to the sages, then then it's the opposite. There, it's until now we've been saying that I put an Erev over here and an Erev over here. If a teacher comes from this side, then it's going to go on me this side. And we're saying the opposite. If a teacher comes from this side, then I want this Erev to be good. Okay, we'll have to understand. So what's going on? So Gemara says kasha nachram anachram kasha chacham achacham. It's a direct contradiction. Our Mishnah said one way for non-Jews, and now it's saying the opposite way for non-Jews, and I said one way for scholars, now it's saying the opposite. So nachram lakasha. When it comes to Gentiles, no contradiction. Habifar hagbana. Here one is the tax collectors. Okay, we're not talking about. So I should have been more clear because I was talking about a case where people are coming to kill you. People coming to kill you, you could run for your life. That was a bad example on my part. So if it's tax collectors which are coming, and I just want to be clear, this notion of people not paying taxes is 100% against halacha. 100% against halacha. The Bali Tosfos and others talk about that we are absolutely obligated. We're absolutely obligated to listen to the rules of our country, and aside from the massive chilul Hashem that takes place when people cheat the government and all that, back in the day, you had situations where there was a completely immoral, unethical tax system, and very often they would tax the Jews disproportionate to the rest of the community. So meaning that is something which is unethical, it's wrong. There, now we can have a conversation. Okay, do you have to pay such a person? But if you have a legal system, you may not like the legal system. You may think the taxes are too high or too low. That doesn't matter. You have to pay those taxes. Period. There's nothing to discuss. Okay. So therefore, the Gemara says, if it's a tax collector which is coming, and again, a tax collector from the ancient world where we could assume a person is allowed to not pay that tax collector, then you're allowed. So that's when our Mishnah was talking about, because you want to run the other way, because you don't want to, because he bumps into you, he says, hey, you owe us the money. However, the Brisa where Rav Yitzchak says you run towards him, his Haba Mari de Masa, we're talking about 10 officials who people want to meet because they want to say that, hey, my BG bill went not just double, but triple this past month. I want to speak to you, I want to complain to you. So that's a person you want to come close to, okay? Therefore, there's no real contradiction. We're talking about different types of people. Some people you want to run away from, some people you want to come close to. Chacham, you want to not. Yeah, okay. Chacham akasha. No contradiction between scholar and scholar. Ha b'mosiv pirkei. The case for Mishnah where you want to come close to the person is a teacher, public lecturer. Ha b'makrei shema. The other one is the one who teaches children to pray. So what does this mean? Different interpretations. My favorite one, my favorite one is something that the Aruch says, that he says we're talking about the school tuition board. Okay, so we're not endorsing this. We're not suggesting this is a good thing to do. It's a bad thing to do. It's illegal. It's wrong. It's unethical. But it's a reality. And therefore, when the collector of school tuition, that's the person coming to town. So there, the person wants to run away because they don't have the money for tuition. Fascinating approach. Many disagree with it. But one way or another, we're pointing out that it's not really a contradiction. It's really the point is, who do you want to? The principle exists. Do you want to come close to this? Do you want to go closer to this individual or go further away? Okay. Rabbi Yehuda said that whereas the Chachamim said that if you could go in either direction, that if you want to go, if you put two of them and you say if whichever way he comes, or whichever if Chacham comes, if a scholar comes from both sides, then whichever way I choose, I could choose which one. However, Yehuda said if one of those is your rabbi, then you can't choose. Then you have to go to the rabbi's side because we could assume that that's what he meant. So why do the rabbis disagree? Sometimes there's a normal inclination. We like something fresh. We like something new. So even if I have a teacher, even if I have a rebbe, even if I have a rabbi, I might sometimes say, yeah, okay, but I'm going to see him next week. I know what he's going to say. I know the story already. I know his mindset. So I want to go to it's more exciting to go to the fresh person, and therefore that's why they disagree with the Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, Amarav. Rav says, Leis Lamas Nisan. Our Mishnah's version of Rabbi Yehuda's statement is not correct. Tani Ayo, because there's a brisa which Ayo taught. Tani Ayo, Rabbi Yehuda says a different version of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, he says Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ein Adam Masnal Shnei Dvarim Ke'achad. Rabbi Yehuda says a person is not allowed to place conditions on two things simultaneously. Sorry, I'm a little tired. Ella in Kain Bachacham Mizrach Ivul Mizrach. Rather, if the scholar comes to the east, then his Erev is to the east, and Bachacham Marav Eruvo Lemarov. And if the scholar comes to the west, the Erev is to the west. Okay, in that case, the condition is effective. Avalikan Lekan lo. But if the person stipulates that if scholars comes to both places, then he should go to the place that he chooses. That he says Rehuda is not going to allow. Okay, so again, what he's saying is that until now in our Mishnah we said three cases: 1A, 1B, and 2. Okay, well, fine. In other words, a person goes ahead and sets up an Erev on the east because my rabbi is coming to the east. You go to the east. You put it on the west. You go to the west. But what you can't do, in our Mishnah we said you could put on both sides and say whichever one I want. Okay, and I'll figure it out. Right. However, Ayo's saying, no, that's not true. That's not accurate. You can't put on both sides and say whichever way he comes, that's the way the Erev is going to work. Why? Why not? Because he holds there is no validity to the concept of brera. Brera means a retroactive, a retroactive designation. Like it's going to be retroactively effective, right? Because what's happening over here in the situation where I place it to the east, what I'm saying is that okay, and now if the rabbi comes to the east, I'm going to go this way. But if I put it this way and that way, then I don't know when Shabbos begins. I have no idea which one it is. It's only when I start seeing, every rumors start coming. Oh, the rabbi's coming from that side, or the rabbi's coming from that side. Retroactively, I'll know which one is. Retroactively, not just that I'll know. Retroactively, one of them is going to now kick in. And we'll say retroactively from the time Shabbos began, that's the time it kicked in. So he says, so if that's the case, Lemizrach Lamar of Nami and Brera. When the person said that, that the Erev should be to the east or the Erev should be to the west, why is that valid? It's also, there should be some element of Brera over there. So Rabbi Yochanan uchvar ba chacham. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Rabbi Yehuda does not allow for Brera. Okay, the case that what Rabbi Yehuda does allow for is where you don't know where he already came to, right? In other words, there's two cases which are quite similar. In one case, I place it here, and I say, listen, whichever way he comes, retroactively, it's going to be effective. That's not effective because that's brera means right now it's a complete unknown. It's a complete unknown as to whether he's coming here or whether he's coming here, and therefore when Shabbos began, it was still not defined. In middle of Shabbos, 3:00 in the afternoon, retroactively, it's this side. That means that's the one that was effective. That Rabbi Yehuda says doesn't work. What he does allow for is to say to the east or to the west, and it's effective, and I say whichever way he comes, in a situation where he was already coming, and he was already there, I just personally did not know. That's not brera, that's just a matter of clarifying the details, right? There, Rabbi Yehuda would say that would work, right? In other words, again, just to say it clearly, in a situation where I place it to the right, and to the left, and to the, this side, and to the east and the west, and I say, listen, whichever direction the rabbi more or less has come already, I don't know which direction he started to walk in. I don't know which direction he's already coming from, but whichever direction he's already coming from, that's the one that should be effective. There, it's not brera, it's now clarifying. So it was already, I said, whichever one it is, and there was already an answer to the question when Shabbos began. I just didn't know the answer to the question. There, that's not brera, and therefore it works. We'll pick up on this tomorrow. Have a great day.